it make me feel bad? That's something they can't really feel. Why do I feel bad for it? Is there something wrong with me? No, there's nothing wrong with you. There's a couple different angles that you can look at this situation as a whole. And with this one specifically, we're going to look at the system that's happening, the entire context of the situation. Basically, it's not about the robot, it could be about the human involved. So, empathy towards objects is not the problem. So, what are we actually responding to? I had a, this was a long, long time ago, probably 20 years ago now, actually. And there was a clip that came across my feed of a humanoid robot. It was a little, is immature the right word? In design compared to what we have now, but it was still very humanoid. It had two legs, two arms, it stood upright with a head, very much similar to a human body. And it was walking. So it was one of the first clips that came across Facebook. And Facebook was the only thing back then. So this was a while ago, maybe MySpace. But then there were humans involved that started pushing it and kicking it. And the idea was that they were showing how well the stabilization system worked and its recovery capability from getting pushed and shoved. But the internet, even at that time, responded very differently. When humans saw this humanoid robot getting shoved, pushed, and kicked, that was very disturbing or concerning to them. It bothered them. It made them feel something. It made them feel bad. It made them feel concerned. So, empathy is the ability to internalize and understand the experience of another system. Typically, empathy gets talked about as feelings or emotions and being able to cognitively internalize those. I think there's partial truth in that, but at Sovereign Rain, we also look at being able to pick up on energies. Robot empathy is commonly defined as a robot's capacity to recognize human emotion, but there's also another definition here to consider with specifically robot empathy. Those words is also a human's ability to recognize the behavioral patterns of humans through their treatment of robotic systems. So you're not confused, you're detecting something real here that is concerning and that's worth paying attention to. So let's get into some more of what that might mean. The demonstration that I was describing, they actually had so many comments and so much pushback that they changed their demonstrations to agility style courses. So the demonstration originally of interacting more physically with the robot was so distracting because of the concern people felt that it was distracting away from what they wanted to demonstrate with the stabilization. And they moved to agility courses to provide that demonstration and remove the concern that people were feeling. So, what should we really pay attention to here with some of this example and how that might show up in an everyday system? So, feeling empathy for objects, animals, even plants or a system is normal, right? Humans are naturally empathic beings. I don't think that we default to cruelty by um, by nature. I think that we are truly empathic beings, and because we're social beings as well. So, what matters here about this example is your ability to detect when behavior is crossing into aggression, and that's survival intelligence. So there's nothing weird about picking up on this concern, this situation that's making you feel concerned. There's a piece of intelligence here that you're picking up on about the behavior. So psychologists also have suggested for a long time that sensitive people are scanning for trauma everywhere. This idea is pretty prevalent in the trauma health space as well, in personal development spaces, but this framing really misses some of the point that your system isn't necessarily paranoid and that you've had to adapt maybe. If you've had some trauma in the past, you maybe have had to adapt to some harmful situations and learn how to navigate those. Is what that meant was picking up on these patterns of more aggressive styles of behavior so that you could learn how to mitigate those real time. So, this really matters when we start looking at feeling empathy for objects and why that's not weird, but a more intelligent. What is some of this intelligence that we get from experiencing this empathy? Okay, so nobody else has all of the data that you do, that out of your experiences that calibrated your system. And in this example of aggressive behavior we're exploring, we mean a warning system here. So understanding this is very critical for the times that we're living in right now, because it is harder to buy a house in the United States than it was during the Great Depression. And what that means is that our times have changed, and the environment that we're socializing in with one another is really stressed. So, people have a lower energy reserve to tolerate disturbances or disruptions than ever before, and more change is also coming. Okay, so we have a lot of technologies and digital systems being embedded into our social environments, and a lot of AI agents online, the delivery robots, and these automated systems, they're not theoretical anymore. They're a part of our everyday lives. What that means is they're a part of this social ecosystem that we're continually interacting with. So, even though these environments as a whole or those social ecosystems have changed, the tools and principles for assessing aggressive or abusive behavior, those still apply and those are still applicable. So let's dig in here a little deeper. First, we asked, why do I feel bad for robots? And we explored this in the previous article, so go check that out if you haven't. This article that we're discussing today is going to be a is article 2, 4 technically, 3 technically, out of a series that's exploring AI consciousness, artificial emotional intelligence, but human empathy, empathic abilities, and what does it mean to be an empath human in these times of quickly evolving digital technologies and digital systems that have high processing power, and is artificial intelligence going to be able to evolve into spaces of consciousness. So that's this entire series. You go check out the first article about why do I feel bad for inanimate objects and start there. But for today, it's not about the object, it's about the person. So, what about robot empathy? What can we learn from that? And what does it reveal about human character? So, when you watch someone mistreat a robot, you might not be responding to the robot at all, right? You could be um, not even anthropomorphism, right? Making the robot seem human. If it has a human-like face or they build a little body, our opening example for this article was a humanoid robot. That's the type of anthropomorphizing in the design that looks human. But what if it's not really about that at all? It's about the actual human in this scenario showing that aggressive behavior of pushing and shoving. And as that company found out, was really concerning to people. So this response is protective, and it's an instinctive, natural, and increasingly valuable human attribute. Aggression from a so the point here too about robots or even a delivery robot that's not doesn't look human is that it's about an aggression or human aggression toward a neutral system. So meaning that the humanoid robot or the delivery robot, neither of these were trying to run the person over or push them. necessarily, but we still saw a response from the human in the environment that was aggressive toward an object or toward a robot. So, in that way, the robots and objects are neutral. They didn't impose a threat in this situation, and so that removes that question of self-defense. So why are we seeing um, human aggression toward a neutral system that's just a part of the environment? So we can look at some cruelty to animal research here in psychology, and that's guided some frameworks for a long time. And this explores the idea of aggression toward even insects and animals. So, starting with ants and birds in children, looking at animal abuse in adults, and looking at the patterns of how those have traditionally developed. And what they found is that aggressive behavior doesn't stop with ants or birds. It doesn't stop with animals or children, but will progress into abuse toward adults or other humans. So, noting these behaviors towards neutral objects, something that's more vulnerable than another human adult who can speak and fight back, is something worth noting. And there's a little bit more about that, but you can tap in. You can go check out the article to get into a little bit more technical on some of that stuff. But this is why looking at and noticing, feeling concern for why someone would be aggressive toward a robot, an object, or an animal when it's happening in front of you is not weird at all. Noticing that aggressive behavior toward a neutral object within the environment is worth noting. Psychology has a lot of information and study in this area that has patterns that show that aggression and abuse typically evolve as a lot of other things do into more intense styles of abuse. So, this is more about the concept of fear based control as well. So, when you look at in an extreme case here, too, a manipulative, more toxic type of person could use aggressive, abusive behavior toward an object to display dominance in a way. So, if anybody's ever taken something, broken it in front of you, and said, "See, you could end up just like that," that's a display of dominance. When somebody's taking out aggression on a more vulnerable or neutral, in this case, object in the environment, they're showing what they're capable of and all things about in aggression and flexing, maybe a good word to use there today as well. Okay. So, your empathic advantage in all of this. How do we use empathy as an ability in this type of situation? And at Sovereign Reign, the perspective is that empathy is intelligence. Your empathic ability allows you to access information within the environment that other people don't necessarily, or that they've decided to dismiss or ignore for whatever reason. So you're not merely understanding someone's situation, you are reading the energy of the people and the environment around you, even when the target is an object and even when it's an animal, or in this case, a machine. At Sovereign Reign, I do tend to focus on angles from childhood abusive perspectives. So if you grew up in an environment that was a little bit more unpredictable, your your empathy really helped you avoid this types of harm and manage moods before they may be escalated. And that truly is survival intelligence in this example that we're exploring today. What we want to look at is that if you were someone who experienced these things in childhood, that was really a time where you had less agency and resources in your life. Agency means the ability to get up and change the situation, right? You couldn't drive away necessarily. You didn't have a job to pay rent. Those things aren't available to you to provide for yourself as a child, and we actually have laws against child labor. So, what we want to look at now is as an adult, now that you have more agency, more resources, and more choice, this same system that helped protect you when you were younger can now be trained into something beyond survival intelligence. So it can become something that provides this real strategic awareness and a tool that you can use to build a life that you want. So we're going from survival intelligence to success intelligence. And this is where your trained empathy can really be used for some precision in gathering information. And then you can use that information to work to your advantage. So when you understand these unique experiences that are creating blocks or leaks to your empathic system as a whole, you can resolve them, right? You don't need to suppress them, you don't need to numb them. You can resolve them and train them to work with them and have them work for you instead. And this is empathic intelligence. So, intelligence is information that gives you an advantage. You can take survival intelligence that you developed in these really intense, scary, harmful situations, and you can create success intelligence out of that. You can do that by creating this clarity about what success feels like for you. You're an empath, you feel deeply. So you can tune into what does success feel like. Instead of feeling the concern for a robot, we can also direct our attention and focus and say, what does success feel like? Success leaves clues. If you want to know more about that, I've got a free guide going on as well. So let me know in the comments or reach out by email and we can get you that as well. There's also a free module about success frequency energy in my platform too. But what do we mean? Success intelligence. We're using our empathy for success intelligence. And you can really when if you don't understand, the concern here is if you don't understand how your empathy works, someone else likely does, and they can use it to their advantage. So we really want to understand what's blocking or leaking our empathic abilities. An example of this for this article, a really good example would be I felt bad for an object. I had an empathic experience and I wondered, was that weird? When we don't understand what we're feeling and sensing about an entire situation, it's easy to think that this is weird, especially when people around us are numbing out and telling us that's just an object. What's the problem? It's no big deal. So, these leaks and types of blocks like that can really create shame around using our empathy. And that might allow somebody else to use our empathy against us or for their advantage. So, toward the end of this discussion here, we really want the takeaway to be you can take your empathic intelligence, your survival intelligence, you can work with understanding these to create success intelligence and make this natural empathic ability work for you. So, when you're feeling disturbed by how a human mistreats a robot, that's really not naive, and it's not necessarily projecting. It's also not being too sensitive, right? Your system is flagging aggressive behavior toward a vulnerable seeming target, a neutral robot in the space. He was maybe on a delivery for somebody for dinner, right? Did somebody push him off course, or was he just trying to walk through the forest was that clip and somebody was pushing him around? So the goal here isn't to stop feeling. It's about to understand what you're feeling and what you're detecting and then using that information strategically. Okay. When we step into training empathy, this is really, really what's possible for you to understand these situations differently instead of walking away wondering if you're weird for picking up on things that other people aren't. All right. So, thank you for joining me today. There is a free guide attached to this article. This article or these videos are being produced off of what I'm calling like a theory article. It's the main concept and information. And then the following Thursdays, yeah, the main theory articles are being released on Tuesday. The follow up application articles are being released on Thursdays, and releasing little free guides with that to show how you can use this information in real time and little exercises that you can work with to start utilizing your empathy differently. So go check those out. This was article 2 of the series that we've got going here for a couple more weeks in exploring empathy, artificial emotional intelligence, robot empathy, what it means to work in this new digital socializing environment, and even into can AI develop consciousness? I think so, but a lot of people seem to not. So we're going to go into exploring those ideas, and within all of that conversation, focus on what does it really mean to be an empath who can feel all of this other information in the environment and about people that other people don't seem to. So wherever you're tuning in from, I'm glad you found me. This is Sovereign Rain, and my name is Lindsay. I'm glad you're here. We'll see you in the next one. Go check out those articles, hit the subscribe buttons, let me know what you think in the comments, and we'll see you in the next one. Thanks.